Last time the squad narrowly escaped a wyvern. However, this time, one of them is going to die. Level 10. Love Songs Won't Reach. This book actually kicks off with a character that we've never met before. His name is Jesse, and he's an ex-hunter who left Alterna to live on his own in the wilderness. Today, Jesse has decided to go fishing when he is suddenly attacked by a bear. He sacrifices one hand while using the other to poke out its eye, which causes the bear to rage and knock him unconscious. Jesse comes to with the bear eating him, so he draws and jams his knife into the bear's other eye. This causes the bear to flee, allowing Jesse to slowly crawl his way back to camp, when he suddenly remembers his life before Grimgar. He then spends the last moments of his life trying to determine whether this fantasy world is reality, or possibly just a game. However, he is interrupted by a woman. This mystery woman claims that she has one way to save his life, and he promptly asks her to do so. Now the squad had basically no choice but to continue heading east after escaping the wyvern, but they did find some weapons along the way. Currently, we find Haru hiding behind a tree in an attempt to escape his pursuer. These gorillas are extremely tenacious and have a shell-like skin which acts as spiky armor. Haru is noticed and charges at the beast, faking an attack, just as Dark collides with the gorilla. Kuzaku and Inba move up together as the gorilla jumps off of a tree, knocking them away. Yume then aggroes the beast, allowing Inba to land a dropkick. However, the gorilla retaliates by tackling Inba to the ground, and Yume attempts to save him, but she is unable to break through the armor. Haru then leaps from a tree, putting all of his weight behind his stiletto, which successfully pierces the gorilla's skull. The beast thrashes around for just a moment before collapsing to the ground on top of Haru. The squad then rescues Haru to find him severely injured, forcing Mary to use Sacrament. Satora then proceeds to scold Haru, telling him that he's too quick to throw his life away, and that the squad would be completely lost without him. Satora then kisses his head, and they realize that the gorilla they just killed is a redback, meaning that it should be the leader of the troop that has been tormenting them these past few days. However, they hear drumming once again, signaling that the beasts are still on the hunt. They continue running for a while, but Shiho reaches her limit, forcing them to stop and rest. The drumming immediately starts again, but Satora tells them to stay put as she goes to scout the area. A few moments later, Haru jumps to his feet as he hears the sound of rustling leaves, though thankfully it was just Satora returning, who nibbles on his neck, stating that she has a plan. They follow Satora through the woods to a designated location, where she stops, grabs a hold of Kichi, and asks if they are ready. Haru leads the way, running and jumping off of the cliff. At the bottom, we find Yume struggling to drag Kuzaku out of the river onto the shore. They immediately perform CPR to resuscitate Kuzaku before using Sacrament to repair his body. Satora then returns from scouting, stating that none of the gorillas have followed them to this side of the river. Haru then sheds tears of joy before setting out once again with Satora leading the way. And Haru takes some time to think about his past life, and about how he believes that his love for Mary is strictly one-sided. Ranta then pops into his head but gets quickly pushed out as he crests a hill to find a village in front of them. At this distance, they are unable to determine what race these villagers are, but they are desperate for food and water, so Haru goes to investigate. He proceeds into the valley and enters into a wheat field where he unexpectedly notices a presence behind him. He jumps up and turns around to find a hooded figure staring directly at him. Haru instantly runs away with the figure following him. He exits the field and enters into the forest as Dark flies past him toward the pursuer. In response to this, the man casts a beginner level spell. However, his magic missile is gigantic when compared to Shiho's. The two spells collide, canceling each other out, and Kuzaku distracts the man as Yume ambushes him from behind. The man easily kicks away Yume just before gracefully vaulting over Kuzaku and dodging Inba. Haru then enters into stealth, but not before making eye contact with Shiho. She casts Dark once again, which is cancelled out in the same way as before, but this gave Haru the opening he needed to land a picture-perfect backstab. The man grunts from the wound and looks back.
Sorry.
Immediately mounting Haru and slamming a magic missile into his face at point-blank range. He then uses the unconscious Haru as a hostage, forcing the squad to surrender. This strange man then says that he doesn't want to kill them, but he also mentions that it's not going to keep him up at night if he has to. And after that bold statement, he welcomes them to Jessie Land. On their way to the village, Mary tries to heal Haru but gets denied. Yume then asks Jessie how the heck he survived the backstab. Jessie proceeds to blow off the question, just stating that Haru's stealth and backstab combo was literally perfect. He also makes an offhand comment about Yume's unique way of speaking Japanese. A few moments later, they reach the village, where they finally allow Mary to heal Haru, and while doing so, she thinks to herself,
I couldn't go on without you.
Now Haru has been healed, but he's still out cold, so Jessie takes him hostage once again as he begins to ask the squad some questions. Shiho answers each and every one of them truthfully, which seems to put Jessie at ease. Jessie then tells them that he thinks they can make a compromise, and this is why Kuzaku is currently doing manual labor alongside a woman named Yani. While doing the work, he thinks about Mary and Haru, and about how obvious it is that they love each other. However, he's well aware that neither of them will confess to the other, so he decides that he will try to set them up. We then find Yume with a guy named Tuoken scouting the perimeter of the village. They are currently heading back when Yume breaks into a cold sweat, feeling as though something is watching her. Jumping to the village prison, we find Inba, Satora, and Kichi locked up, as Jessie explains the dark, unspoken history behind the village, and Shiho notices that Jessie seems to have a split personality. She then vouches for Satora's trustworthiness, but Jessie responds by saying,
I'm working through this game properly, for my part at least.
They leave the prison, and Jessie tells Shiho that she is Japanese, which causes her to have a panic attack as her brain attempts to remember her life before Grimgar. Jessie then explains that he came to Grimgar just like her without any of his memories. However, a certain event caused him to remember absolutely everything. He then calls this village his game and explains that all of the residents here are a crossbreed between humans and orcs. Shiho then asks Jessie how he learned to use magic, but he refuses to answer. She is then hugged by Yume as she watches an irritated Jessie discuss something with Tuoken. Haru jolts awake to find Mary sitting on the edge of his bed taking care of him. Haru has a strong urge to embrace her as she struggles to hold back her tears and explain the current situation. However, moments later they hear the drumming start again as Jessie strides into the room asking them to defend the village. They race outside and meet up with Yume as Jessie explains that a normal group of gorillas only have a single redback, which insinuates that this is not a normal group of gorillas. Haru then asks to have Satora released, but is told no, and Kuzaku arrives just as Jessie orders them to go defend his game of Jessie Land. They quickly rush to the north, where they encounter 3 gorillas. Kuzaku and Yani take the first, while Haru and Yume each distract another. Shiho uses Dark to stun one of them, allowing Haru to get an easy kill by stabbing its eye. He then goes into stealth and heads towards Yume, who was just grappled by the gorilla. Luckily though, Haru makes it just in the nick of time to prevent Yume from being injured. During all of this, Kuzaku and Yani are easily handling their enemy, but they lack a way to finish it, so Haru closes in just as the gorilla turns around and retreats. Jessie then arrives, stating that 3 of his hunters have died, before leading them into town where they find gorillas indiscriminately slaughtering civilians. Mary brings up Satora and Jessie throws them the key to the prison, which they arrive at moments later to find 2 gorillas chilling on the roof. Haru stealths inside to find a redback attempting to break into Satora's cell. However, he is spotted and sprints outside, where the redback follows him and slams into Kuzaku. Haru tosses Yume the key as he turns to take on the redback. However, the gorilla taunts Haru with a smile before running away. Satora then emerges from the prison and suggests fleeing the village, but Haru says that they need to save the civilians. They then easily take down numerous gorillas before coming across the smiling redback. Kuzaku chases the redback into a house, but is immediately knocked back outside as a gorilla king begins pummeling him. Shiho uses Dark, but it has little to no effect, followed up by Haru being knocked away. Inba comes to the rescue, jumping onto the monster, but is instantly torn to pieces. Shiho then focuses, powering up Dark to the max, successfully stunning the king just long enough for them to rescue Kuzaku. However, in doing so, they've left Shiho unguarded, and the smiling Redback is closing in on her. Though fortunately, a magic missile slams into the Redback, driving it off. Satora angrily charges at the king, and Haru orders Kuzaku to put all of his strength into offense. Kuzaku throws away his shield, enchants his sword, and uses a two-handed, full-body swing to nearly bisect the Gorilla King in a single blow. A corpse is then thrown at their feet, causing them to realize that the smiling Redback is the true leader of this troop. They are then surrounded, as Jesse tells them to use the jail as a bunker. Upon reaching the prison, they rush inside, just as Haru collapses from exhaustion. However, there is no time to rest, because this assault won't let up until the smiling Redback has been killed. In an attempt to end this, Kuzaku and Yume push their way outside, as Haru fails to go into stealth. A gorilla then rushes into the prison, and Mary steps up to defend Haru. She swings her staff, but the gorilla catches it. Mary lets go, just as the gorilla grabs her, leans in, taking a massive bite out of her collarbone. Haru then springs to life, killing the beast and rushing to Mary's side. He lifts her arm in an attempt to help Mary heal herself, but she grimaces in pain, shaking her head. Mary then mutters her last words before dying with a smile on her face. That was intense, but it's not over yet, so come back in 2 weeks to find out if everyone else survives this battle in Grimgar Volume 11. Now I hate that I have to point this out, but please, don't put spoilers of future volumes in the comment section. And if you need something else to watch in the meantime, then check out my videos titled What Happened After the Anime Roka no Yusha. Shout out to my patrons, and thanks for watching everyone. I hope to see you next time.